to today's training session. So, hello, welcome everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Sam Linton, and today I'm going to be talking about the Office Supplies Green Specification training provided to you by the Maryland Green Purchasing Committee. Just a couple of notes. For those of you who are in right now, feel free to post in the chat your name and your agency. I saw a number of people who have the GPS certification, and if you're looking to get those continued credits, just make sure you sign in there so that we know that you're here. Couple of other things, this is going to be recorded, so for those of you who weren't able to attend, you'll be able to watch the training later. The slides as well are going to be shared. There's a lot of links on these slides, and so you'll be able to access the links when the slides get shared to you after the presentation so that you have all the resources you need. And I do want to mention, I see a lot of new faces, specifically from DNR, so fantastic. Well, great to have you all. Hope you all learned something from this training. We are at 32 people now, so I think that's good enough. I'm going to go ahead and get started. If you have questions during the presentation, you can raise your hand or you can type your question in the chat. Vicki is with me as well, the Green Purchasing Program Manager, who will be there monitoring the chat. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So we're learning about the Office Supplies Green Specification that the Maryland Green Purchasing Committee has published, I believe back in 2023 it was. So we're going to go over that. A couple of learning objectives for today. We're going to find out how to access all of the GPC specifications. We have many, many specs, not just limited to office supplies. Understanding the key statutes and regulations, prohibitions, and the minimum requirements for procuring green office supplies. And that's kind of how all of our specifications are structured that way. We're going to go over the environmental attributes that make this product category green, some third-party certifiers that award different office supplies products. We're also going to learn about the sustainable benefits to purchasing green office supplies. We do have some numbers from fiscal year 2024 that we'd like to share to see how the progress has been going with purchasing green office supplies at the state. And we are going to go over some reporting requirements and some vendor e-commerce platforms where you can find some of these green products. So the easiest way to get to our green purchasing page is to follow the link that Vicki just sent. But the way to go there is we are with DGS. So if you go to DGS for state agencies and you click on green purchasing, that'll take you to our homepage there. Or just Google searching Maryland Green Purchasing will take you right to the homepage. And in that homepage on the right tab, under resources, you click on specifications. It'll take you to a new window where it'll have all of the specification categories that we have listed. You click on office supplies, and there you have the office supplies specification. So these slides that I'm about to show you are all come off of the office supply specification. Some of the language does come off of the toner specification, its own standalone spec, which is also mentioned in the office supply specification. So that's how you get there. We're going to share all these resources with you as we go. So you can have the spec up open if you like and follow along, or you can just listen to the presentation. So all of our specs are structured in this way, starting with what you can't buy, prohibited products, the minimum requirements for various product categories, in this case, office supplies. Those minimum requirements could either point out a third-party certification that it must have, It might point to recycled content requirements, maybe some other standards like non-toxic certifications, um, energy efficiency attributes like that. So that's what the minimum requirements will, kind of what it targets right there. Product recommendations, if a green option is not widely available, we put them as recommendations. Again, the recommendations don't have to be followed, but we give preference to the greener option in the recommendations. So that's if you want to go more above and beyond of what the minimum requirements are in the spec. And we also have environmentally preferable purchasing language, and then all the legislation, statutes, and regulations to back up what those requirements are. And so, but the reason why you can trust our GPC specifications is that the requirements have been vetted by the committee. So when we put minimum requirements in there, we make sure that they are commercially available. We make sure that they address the product's performance and can still do the same job with the greener option. And also the environmental certifications that are referenced, they come from a third party, so they are verified and they do not contribute to greenwashing, which I'll touch on a little bit in the coming slides. But what you'll see in most of our specifications and in the office supply specification are some legislative requirements for procurement officers and agencies. These are more general legislation. And so if this is your first time attending one of our green purchasing trainings, which I do see some new faces, so this might be, that the regulation that really supports everything that we do is the environmental preferable purchasing regulation in COMAR. That basically is the buy green law, that all agencies have to buy green almost every single time unless there are these three caveats that they do not perform adequately for the intended use. It either excludes adequate competition or it's not available at a reasonable price in a reasonable period of time. I will say in almost all cases there is a green option that can be chosen, and that these three caveats don't come into play. Just to point out the fact that we are at the state aware that we need to buy green, and it is in our legislation. Another one to be aware of, the mercury in products containing mercury. This is probably pretty common for all of you procurement officers. You've probably seen this requirement as well. Basically, no commercially available, basically mercury-free products have to be available. And in such cases, if they do contain mercury, they have to meet the necessary performance requirements to be proposed. And then lastly, limitations on prohibitions, heavy metals in packaging. Probably another one that you've seen before, but the use of these packaging components with lead, cadmium, mercury, or other toxic chemicals at concentration levels exceeding 100 parts per million is prohibited. One statute that is more relevant to purchasing office supplies is targeted at recycled content for paper products. This is in the State Finance and Procurement Article 14-402, stating that basically paper and paper products purchased by the state must contain at least 80% post-consumer recycled content, and if that is not available, purchasers have to, at a minimum, comply with the EPA's comprehensive procurement guidelines. And when we make recycled content requirements, we do reference the EPA CPGs a lot. Here's an image of the page showing the EPA comprehensive procurement guidelines. This is just one for paper and paper products. They have different categories where they go over recommended recovered content levels. So this is the table that we do reference if the percentage of recycled content is not available what is listed on our spec, then you it's the second choice. You refer to the EPA CPGs, and Vicky just shared that there, so you can take a closer look at what they are. I know that these images are a little small to read, but it does go through a lot of different product types in the office supplies category. So that's why we reference that a lot. This one is specifically for bidders. I mentioned greenwashing. Greenwashing is basically saying that you have a green product and you're offering it, but you don't have the information or documentation to back up why it is green in this case. So vague claims like natural, bio-friendly, eco-friendly, right? Those vague claims are not good enough for the Federal Trade Commission's guidelines for the use of environmental marketing terms. So if you do offer a green product, it has to match with those claims. So just a big message in general that greenwashing is not allowed, and it has to be certified in writing that your claims of your environmental attributes are aligned with FTC's guidelines. So let's go into prohibited products. There are a few prohibitions that we do have in this office supplies spec. I am very soon going to go over what all the products are that we cover in this spec, but just going to go over what some of the prohibitions are. Batteries containing nickel cadmium, mercury, or lead are prohibited. Now, I'm pretty aware that the use and the sale of this has gone down dramatically as we've gotten more information about lead and mercury and its toxic potential and how corrosive lead is. So this is also in COMAR talking about products containing mercury. So that kind of what backs up the banning of these types of batteries. So if it does contain mercury, the contractor has to clearly label it in its bid and all products that contain mercury. So there are green options for batteries, which I will go over soon. Toner cartridges. So this is an interesting one that we do have a prohibition for single-use new built cartridges, also known as compatibles. So these toner cartridges are meant to be compatible for multiple different printers. The issue is in the manufacturing, it doesn't follow the same standards as the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer, or a remanufacturer of toner cartridges. There isn't any standardized method for the way that they manufacture compatibles. And what happens is that they can break, they can leak, they can cause printer damage. They have been known to cause a lot of problems with different imaging equipment. So while there is widely available OEM cartridges, high yield cartridges, and remanufactured cartridges, that there's really no reason to be using the single-use new built cartridges that we have here. Other prohibitions, there was a expanded polystyrene ban back in 2019 that was more targeted towards clamshell containers and food service ware, but there also is a prohibition for polystyrene packaging. And the styrofoam that's used in there has been known to cause human health and environmental risk. So avoiding polystyrene in packaging is a big thing at the state because we do not allow it for purchase. So that goes for packaging as well. Lastly, for prohibited products, desk lamps that are using fluorescent, halogen, or incandescent lamps are prohibited. One reason being that LED lamps are widely available, much more energy efficient than the three that I listed there. Fluorescent lights still have mercury in them. Halogen and incandescent lamps are very energy inefficient, and they cause heat to build up. more likely to break and burn. So this is also for fire hazard reasons, but also very, very energy inefficient. Um, and with all of the LED products that we have now, that again, there's no reason to be using these types of desk lamps. So that's what you'll see in the office supply specification for prohibitions. And now we're going to get into minimum requirements for the office supply spec. Again, it's either going to point towards an eco-label or recycled content, or maybe a certification that follows some standard that has non-toxic materials, something that's more energy efficient. So these are the categories kind of broken down into three: office paper products, non-paper office products, and office electronics and furniture. So I know that there are, thinking about office supplies and what you would want to stock for an office, there are some products that you probably don't see here that you would normally try to buy for, a new office space or something like that. You'll notice that like paper towels and cleaning supplies are not in here necessarily. Maybe like drinking cups or things like that, or coffee machines, or other things that you might see in restocking an office aren't in here. And the reason for that is because we have a janitorial supplies specification that goes over all of those cleaning products and the paper products used to perform the janitorial services. So I know that there is office supplies covers more. In general, office supplies covers more than what we have listed in here. But if you're wondering, how come paper towels isn't in here? The answer to that is because we already have a specification that exists that covers that. So um, again, these are the three categories that we'll go into. Um, Starting with office paper products, I'm going to go back to the slide real quick. We are going to go over the minimum requirements for each of the things, each of the products that you see listed here. So moving on. So copy paper, probably like top three in most in our office supplies category, the GPC's office supplies category. Probably got to be top three in most frequently purchased item. That's what I get from vendor reports and from agency reports as well. So I can kind of keep track of what we're buying a lot of. So it will be pretty important to know this minimum requirement for copy paper. This is specifically white copy paper, number 20. So it must contain at least 50% post-consumer recycled content and possess one of these third-party certifications. Again, the third-party certifications verifies that it has some sustainable benefits to that product, whether it was sourced from whether it was sustainably sourced, whether it comes from recycled material. These different eco labels point that out and can verify it. So there's no greenwashing involved. So those eco labels here are Forest Stewardship Council. That could be one. They look specifically at the wood harvested for various paper products. So you'll see FSC certifications a lot for office supplies paper products. I bet that if you look at your copy paper in your office, you will probably, off of double check, actually see this FSC certification somewhere on it. So that's kind of how they label the environmentally preferable products that they have. Green Seal is another one. They mostly are looking at janitorial supplies and cleaning supplies, but they also do cover copy paper. So two other eco labels that basically are verifying the recycled content claim. That's UL Eco Logo and SCS. So if you see that a copy paper has a 30% recycled content and it has that eco label, you know that that is accurate, that is verified. So those are to make sure that what is said to be green in fact is. So not just limited to copy paper, to white copy paper, but other office paper products like paper notepads, sticky notes, portfolio folders, hanging file folders, envelopes. Think of anything that could be used in an office that is made of paper. These have the following minimum requirements. Um, there's 3 different requirements that are acceptable. So just to confirm that these different bullet points, one of any of the 3 basically can be considered green. So it must contain at least 50% post-consumer recycled content, similar to the white copy paper, or contain 100% total recycled content with at least 30 post-consumer, or have at least 30 post-consumer with one of the following third-party certifications. The same eco labels that I showed in the slide that had copy paper. And it must not have any microbial claims or any PVC vinyl components. I don't think copy paper would necessarily fall under that, but some of the folders and some of that material, um, that's probably where that no PVC requirement will come into play. So that covers the first part of office supplies. That covers all of the office paper products, mostly points towards recycled content and the eco labels that cover those different product categories. So we're moving on to non-paper products. Batteries, probably of the top 3, batteries is probably in there of most frequently purchased. And I think that there's some good green potential there with our battery purchases. So it's important to know the minimum requirements here for batteries that we have in the spec. So it must meet each of the following criteria. So this is more of a requirement for the vendor. They must offer at least one brand of nickel metal hydride rechargeable batteries of in the following sizes. So at least one brand of each of these different sized batteries. That must be offered. So there has to be a green option offered there. Must not contain, uh, following up with the prohibition that we talked about in the previous slide for batteries. They must not contain nickel, cadmium, mercury, or lead. Pretty straightforward. All batteries must either be rechargeable nickel metal hydride or rechargeable / non-rechargeable lithium ion batteries. So they must be one of the other, nickel metal hydride or lithium ion. So those are not going to contain mercury or acid. So that's what we can confirm there. And then the vendor must offer a free rechargeable battery recycling system on the contract. So think about the end of life of a lot of products that may contain hazardous materials. Like batteries is a perfect example of that, right? There's a lot of like radioactive waste involved. So thinking about it in the way of the end of life management of it. You don't want it just to be put into a garbage bin or put into a recycle bin. You want it to go to a take-back vendor who is going to responsibly recycle these batteries, because it also has to be handled, with pretty good knowledge of how to recycle batteries, because you're dealing with toxic chemicals. So putting it in a standard bin is definitely not the way to go. That's why we have this free rechargeable battery recycling system on the contract. So binders, we are looking at binders, paper, plastic, mixed material, so not limited to just the paper binders, but you'll also see this on the EPA CPGs. It must contain at least 25% post-consumer recycled content and not have any vinyl, PVC, or antimicrobials. So 25% post-consumer for binders. When we're looking at pens, we're looking at refillable pens, like the refillable ink that you can keep using, right? So you'll increase its lifespan that way. But also the pen itself to have recycled material. So it must be refillable or be a refill, and the vendor must offer that refill. Or it must have at least 30% post-consumer recycled content, or at least 50% total recycled content. Um, Not to gloat at all, but I do have some recycled pens in my office. I think they're at 88% total recycled content. So just to show that there are recycled pens available, the recycled content number is shown right on the pen itself. So that's a great way for verification right there. And lastly, must not contain vinyl PVC or antimicrobials. Toner cartridges. This is probably so copy paper, batteries, toner cartridges. Those are probably the top three office supplies products that I see. And so I want to go into some good detail about toner cartridges because it's important to get the green option, but also there's a lot of environmental benefits that we have been able to calculate in past fiscal years for buying those environmentally preferable toner cartridges. So what does make it environmentally preferable? We're looking at two things. We're looking at remanufactured. So when it's done, it gets sent back to the remanufacturer and they sell it again. So it doesn't have to go through that whole waste process of, you know, going through different recycling facilities, doesn't even enter the waste stream. So it just gets sent right back, remanufactured. So you can say that that has a great deal of recycled content in there. So we're looking at manufactured and we're looking at high yield compared to standard yield. High yields will be able to print probably in general, I would say 2 to 3 times more of the standard yield. So you'll get more yield per or less cost per page, and also it will last longer. So you won't have to replace it as much. So there's a cost saving aspect to it, but also environmentally, you're not going through more material with getting high yield. It's kind of like in comparison to getting an energy efficient product compared to one that's not energy efficient. High yield will just last longer, so you're not having to buy more. So cost savings, and you're not having to go through more materials used to get yourself to bring that toner cartridge for sale. So we're looking at remanufactured and high yield. It could be both, which is even better, but one or the other is fine. So remanufactured, which is consistent with the EPA's comprehensive procurement guidelines. They do have some guidance information on that on the EPA CPG website. By a company that is STMC certified, standard testing materials committee or standard testing methods committee, that goes over all of the different protocols for how to like remanufacture a product. So if it is certified under that, that's a trusted company that you can source remanufactured toners from. So that and high yield. Um, the one way to know that it is high yield is to look for the following codes on the product itself. So the top left photo that I can't enlarge right now, but XL signifies that it is high yield. Any of these different notations, sometimes they change it up a bit, but that will help you differentiate between a high yield and a standard yield toner cartridge. Oh, I forgot to mention that the vendor may only offer environmentally preferable toner cartridges on the product, except where there are none available for a specific piece of equipment. But nowadays, there's a lot of like multi-function devices that for imaging equipment. So, and a lot of OEM, a lot of original equipment manufacturers that take that into account. So in most cases, it should be available for whatever type of imaging equipment you have. So looking at, the not just the remanufacturing of it, but also looking at the different indoor air quality standards or certifications for testing. So because there's ink and different different chemicals used to make these ink and toner cartridges. So they must have one of these standard or adhere to one of these standards, which is either EPEAT, Indoor Air Quality Emissions Requirements, Nordic Swan, or Blue Angel. So those are the three eco labels that are looking at that aspect. And not just limited to the air quality testing, but also the cartridge recycling take-back system. So the vendor is required to offer a cartridge recycling system for each product. Um, I know that some departments are already implementing that, which is great, and I know that there are some that kind of do their own in-house thing, but nonetheless, there should be a take-back program offered to anyone who is buying toner cartridges, just because they can't. That it's not good for it to end up in the general waste stream because of its recoverability potential and just because that there's ink and other toxic chemicals that could leach into the environment if it's not if it's not handled properly. So this is to keep track of that. So they must offer a cartridge recycling system for each product offered on the contract, and the vendor's cartridge recycling system must send all of the spent cartridges to a remanufacturer or to a manufacturer that meets one of the performance standards of the following. So the most recent ASTM standard, and that goes into ASTM covers a lot of different standards, but the most recent one for remanufacturing toners, SMTC, Nordic Swan, Blue Angel, and there's a lot of different eco labels out there. So as long as it meets the standards that are identical to one of these eco labels that we have listed here, um, for someone who's looking to verify if the remanufacturer adheres to those standards, you'd have to look into the criteria, but I think that it's pretty consistent across the board. So any other relevant eco label works as long as it has um, the standards that align with these different eco labels that I have here. I went over a lot on toner cartridges because that has a lot of green purchasing potential, and I still expect us to be purchasing more of that in the future. So I'll get to show you a couple benefits of that later on in the presentation too. So non-paper products, continuing on to whiteboard markers and cleaners. Again, we are looking at the chemicals related to those markers used to manufacture it. So we're looking at the marker itself and also what is used to clean the whiteboard. So whiteboard markers have to be certified AP non-toxic. It's a very prevalent standard that I see for a lot of like markers and pens and Sharpies. So widely available, that again, that's AP non-toxic or on the ACMI list with an approved product designation. And when we're talking about whiteboard cleaners, they must be either certified by the EPA Safer Choice Program. Now, that is an eco label that goes over safer chemicals. So if you have some cleaning supplies, you might want to check the back of that bottle to see if it has a Safer Choice eco label on it, so that you know that you're safe to use it, basically. Or certified AP non-toxic. So one of those eco labels will work just fine for whiteboard markers and cleaners. When we're looking at desk lamps, so we're moving on to the office electronics and furniture part. So this is the third part of the office supplies minimum requirements. So getting into desk lamps, we know that we can't do incandescent or halogen or fluorescent, but there is widely available LED desk lamps, and they also need to be Energy Star listed. Um, or I believe Design Lights Consortium, that's another eco label that I didn't see listed in the office supply spec, probably because DLC goes over just specifically light bulbs and other lamps, but not these smaller task lamps that you see here, or desk lamps. So again, use LED desk lamps that are Energy Star listed. Here's a couple of images and examples that kind of show you. These are just general searches that I found from common retail stores and also from our statewide vendors' e-commerce platforms. So I did want to make a note that the images that you see are ones that I tried to make very relevant, the ones that are already being purchased on statewide contracts and are available in most retail stores. Okay, so next slide. Flashlights, also falling under office electronics. We're looking at it being a rechargeable flashlight. There are no eco-label requirements for the flashlights, but it is important to note that it has to be rechargeable, meaning it must come with a recharging system with it. Not having a flashlight battery charger as a separate purchase. So it must have the charger that comes with it. So that was one thing to mention there with flashlights, and must also not contain nickel cadmium or lead acid rechargeable batteries, which we mentioned is prohibited. Now, office chairs, and well, I guess it's just limited to office chairs here, so for furniture. But there's a lot of different office furniture eco labels that are out there, so any one of these is acceptable. Um, and I have all of the images of the eco labels listed on here. So that's UL Green Guard, SCS Indoor, MAS Certified Green, Intertech Clean Air, and so on. That's basically to say any of these eco labels are acceptable for office chairs. I know that I'll get into some slides later that points out where we can find that green office furniture at the state and who we should be looking to for that. So on this next slide, office chairs, continuing on to that, there's not just an eco-label requirement, but there is, there is an upholstered products flammability standard that California has implemented. under C right there, and so that kind of takes into account the Prop 65 warning about known human carcinogens and reproductive toxins. So there is some air quality aspects that can be looked at when manufacturing or when purchasing green office furniture. So that's kind of what it takes into account. So the products must meet the emission requirements of BIFMA. That's one of the example eco labels. It must meet the emission requirements of BIFMA E3 um, criterion 762. And what that all means is, if you look at the image to the right, it has to follow the tier 3/level 3 protocols, which is talking about manufacturers are basically, they're doing chemical assessments for their products and they're sharing that product content publicly. So it's like they're moving it up a step from just having a policy, from just having standards and procedures, to actually disclosing that publicly about, these are the tests that we ran, these are the chemicals of concern that we identified. So it's like a full disclosure of um, kind of similar to an environmental product declaration that kind of lists all of the different impacts that are put into manufacturing, in this case, office chairs. So we got into details with that. So that covers all minimum requirements. I'm now going to talk about recommendations. Moving forward, these recommendations are not something that the procurement officer or vendor or whoever it's directed to is required to do, but this is pointing out the green options and what we at the state should be giving preference to, and what the GPC has come up with as what would be the green option, and what would we want to give preference to. So this is talking about toner cartridges. I mentioned that the vendor must offer a cartridge recycling program, but manufacturers, vendors, retailers, they are encouraged to offer a free cartridge recycling system, um, and that we want them to send these spent cartridges at the end of its life to meet these different criteria that is listed by EPEAT. EPEAT, another eco-label. I know for some of you that are just learning about eco-labels, you probably won't remember all of them as I'm going through. But EPEAT looks specifically at electronics and IT products, environmentally sustainable printers, copiers, monitors, laptops. There you go. Thank you, Vicky. So if you click on that and look at Product Finder, you'll actually see all of the different categories of electronics and IT that they cover. But this is specifically talking about their criteria for take-back programs. So it must meet one of the following EPEAT criteria, whether it's 4.9.3, 2, or 3, any one of these three. So provision of take-back and recycling service for cartridges and containers. Manufacturer recycles and reuses all of the toner material collected through its cartridge and container take-back program, or the manufacturer recycles and reuses all plastic collected through its cartridge and container take-back program. So either all recycled plastic or all recycled material, and having a process for it. So again, this is a recommendation, but it is very important to have those directives in place for handling the end of life of certain things, especially when it's getting transported to different people. Just knowing that you have those standards in place so that the lines of communication are good between everyone who's involved with recycling or reusing toner cartridges. Now moving on to recommendations for packaging. You'll find this in most of our specifications. This is just to point out the aspect that a lot of products that are delivered come in packaging that is either unsustainable packaging of virgin material or um, is using basically using more resources than we need to. So where a contractor uses packaging in addition to the manufacturer packaging, they're encouraged to select the packaging that minimizes or eliminates the use of disposable containers. Um, and so where appropriate, using reusable crates or reusable pallets will obviously be able to be utilized over and over again. So that reduces, the boxed packaging. So that's just put in there as a recommendation. I know that there is, continuing legislation on producer responsibility for packaging, as we've seen. So uh, this is kind of to take into account that there are more sustainable ways for that. Continuing on for corrugated cardboard packaging, the container board, the tan brown looking packaging that you're probably used to seeing. Contractors are encouraged to use versions that contain a minimum of 25% by weight post-consumer materials. Now there is some packaging requirements in the paper spec that was recently passed that also talks about this as well. Um, so that is, but basically that lines up with EPA CPGs for corrugated cardboard packaging. So if it is available, you're encouraged to use the recycled packaging. This is looking at transportation. Obviously, burning fuel, getting your product from one place to another is also going to have an environmental impact. So we have this in all of our specifications as well to recommend to use SmartWay in order to promote fuel efficiency and reduce greenhouse gases and air pollutions. Um, they're encouraged to use SmartWay transport, carrier partner for the same shipment or transport of products. Um, there's a list of SmartWay products. There's also a list of SmartWay truck drivers that use alternative fuels. So, and I think that they're pretty well versed at choosing an optimized route that reduces the amount of transportation that needs to be done. So use SmartWay next time for shipping and transport. That is what we recommend here at the state. And so, you know, looking at it from the whole life cycle of we want more sustainable materials for packaging. We want to have our products last longer. We want to make sure that the transportation reduces our carbon footprint. And so at the very end of the life cycle, we also want to look at the end of life management. Um, this is more directed towards electronics than it is like paper products or things like that. But when we're renting or leasing models are utilized, contractors, they're encouraged to use e-waste recyclers that are either one of the two eco labels, E-Stewards or R2. These two certifications can verify that the end-of-life management of certain electronics and other products are being handled responsibly. Specifically the products that can't just be put into the general waste and recycling stream. So there are a few that I listed here. Toner cartridges and batteries, definitely being some of them. Desk lamps, that's going to need some different way of recovering any material and also handling it responsibly. So we mentioned that for the end of life management. All right, I do want to get into reporting requirements because it is quite important. Um, and I do want to mention that it's very critical for us to get um, to get data on what we purchase at the state. So one, so that we can, be a line of quality control and can verify that what we are spending our state funds on are actually going towards what it's supposed to. But also it's very important to include reporting requirements language and those green requirements um, in your solicitation if it doesn't already exist. Because getting those green requirements in that reporting after the solicitation is already approved and trying to get that retroactively, myself and Vicky can both say that it's much more difficult that way. So this is just a general point of make sure you include this in your future solicitations. Um, the contractor shall submit quarterly sales data to the state over the life of its contract. And that information is supposed to have those environmental attributes that we covered, right? Recycled content, third-party certifications. With a GPC, we have a vendor green sales report template that we made it so that it's much more feasible and easier for a vendor or a agency reporting designee to submit by line item all of the products and what those environmental attributes are, along with the cost and other basic information. So we have the vendor green sales template that they are required to use. And then also by submitting a response to the solicitation, the bidder or offerer acknowledges that they are committed to submitting these reports. And then also there's some level of accountability there that if they are found to be out of compliance, they could be issued a cure notice from the procurement officer to give them a reminder that, hey, we are looking to track everything that we buy here at the state, so that we have to be clear that that is going to that's going to happen. This is just a general image of what the reporting template looks like. The reporting template can be found on the agency reporting page that we have on our website if you want to take a look at the full template, but this is just the commodities tab. This is where you would put in, where vendors would put in line by line after agreeing to submit data. They would fill it out here. The columns that are highlighted in green here point out the environmental certifications, the different attributes, link to documentation. If there's recycled content, you report it in here. And then these columns in yellow kind of just go over basic information of who are you and what are you reporting, right? Um, so we have those systems in place now. There's also an eco table in the reporting template that references the eco labels that we have. I've went over a lot of eco labels in this presentation, so this is a great document that makes a whole table of all relevant eco labels based on the product category. We track 8 different product categories, office supplies being one of them. So of all the eco labels that I've showed in this presentation, you'll also see them under that column for office supplies. It's probably one of my favorite resources that we have, probably, because it's very helpful for keeping track of all the different eco labels and who and what they fall under. So that is reporting requirements, and I touched over on that, how that's quite important to tracking progress and compliance. So your submittal requirements will kind of go over just preventing greenwashing, making sure that what is offered is in fact green and that they have the documentation to back it up. So there are a couple different ways that they can verify that in their submittals. So proof of an applicable required certification that we listed earlier. So that is either documentation of recycled content from the vendor or manufacturer, or if it has one of those eco labels that is like the recycled content claim, like SCS or UL Eco logo, then those will do as well. You can also go to a link to the certifier's website. So Vicky shared the EPEAT link. That's an example of that there, that, hey, we have an EPEAT certified product. Okay, then show me the link on the EPEAT registry. So these third-party certifiers are very transparent. They have it fully public what their criteria is for meeting the standards of that eco label, and it also has a list of all of the products that are currently certified under that eco label. So it keeps it all consolidated there for you. So that's a good resource for checking for verification if they have offered a third-party certified product. It's like, great, send me the link where I can find it. There also are aggregators for different certifier registries like UL Spot and Ecomedes that takes various different third-party certifiers and puts it all onto a database. So that is also another way that you can that they can provide documentation for their green products. Bidders/offers who suggest products that are not certified but meet recycled content requirement, they shall provide a list of such products with their bids and offers. So that list has to include the percentage of recycled content. So that kind of goes over a lot of the spec, pretty much all of the spec. And so now just going to talk a little bit more about where we can get our office supplies from and who we should be giving preference to as a state requirement. So I'm sure you're all aware of our preferred providers, Maryland Correctional Enterprise and Blind Industries and Services of Maryland, BISM. They offer a lot of different product categories that fall under our office supplies specs and requirements that also meet those requirements. So that is where the first option should be taken, right? Looking at either MCE or BISM. MCE definitely has more on the furniture side of things. They take care of a lot of office furniture, and they have green options for that. Blind Industry, different types of copy paper, paper products, also janitorial supplies. I know that I mentioned that janitorial paper products weren't mentioned in this spec training, but it might be something included in future office supplies procurements that you have that might need paper towels or cleaning supplies or things like that. So BISM also has that covered as well. And I do want to point out that they did simplify their process of finding those green products, which I linked the BISM catalog that gives you a full catalog here, but this is actually a green purchasing guide that we worked together with BISM on them preparing so that we could put it on our website for office supplies green purchasing guides. The way that it's kind of structured, you see that it has all of the different eco labels listed there. So all of their green office supplies / janitorial supplies products are in this document. It basically has what the product is, what the eco label or attribute is, and then also the product number on the e-commerce platform. Which, brief disclaimer, I don't know how frequently the item number changes, but you can be sure that this guidance document will tell you the environmental attribute linked to what the product is. So I'm sure just doing a search at BISM's e-commerce platform of that product, just that product description, will probably take you there anyway. So, and it also has some general information about like what what their goal and their mission is in terms of supporting sustainability. So BISM has their green purchasing guide. MCE recently had their fiscal year 2026 catalog come out, which is also on our website that you can access, but I have it linked here. MCE, you'll definitely be looking for the office furniture category through them. They provide um, they have a number of eco labels that they have listed in their catalog. The image to the right is one of the pages in their catalog that has a whole section for environmentally preferable products. And they also have a page dedicated to what their green products and initiatives are and what they're doing moving forward. You'll probably see those relevant eco labels that they have listed off there, but they have a lot of they have a lot more green office furniture options available, not just limited to office chairs. Like they have different like workstations as well. So um, it's linked to the slides, which I will share at the end of the presentation, and Vicky also shared it as well. So now I'm going to go into like our second, I guess our second choice of, let's say BISM or MCE doesn't have what you're looking for, maybe in a large bulk or at a certain amount of time, or there's something that Rudolph has that is, that BISM or MCE doesn't. We're going to go through a couple of the office supply vendors and show you that they also have features on their e-commerce platform that do point towards their green products, and it's organized and consolidated into one of their pages on their platform. So I'm just going to point that out there. The first thing I will mention too is that you will need an account set up with each of these vendors I think in order to see those those environmentally preferable features that they had added in there. So one example we see here is Rudolph's. Again, they have like a green tag for each of their products that do have either recycled content or an eco label or something. But under filters, you can search for recycled right there, and we'll kind of take you further to see what that looks like. But you can also look, other than looking between different product category, different brands and product types and stuff, but you can also search by the environmental certification. And so they have it listed here, and also the quantity of how many products they have offered with, for example, the Green Guard certification. So, and there's also other sustainable features that they have added in here: recycled, post-consumer recycled content, PVC free, refillable. These are kind of the attributes that I was listing earlier in the office supplies slides that I was showing you. So Rudolph Supply, another example of having their green attributes listed on their e-commerce platform, making it a lot easier to find those green products, right? Another example of a remanufactured high-yield toner cartridge listed on their website. Oh, it's so small to see, but this is like a green leaf that basically signifies that there's environmental attributes in there. And then if you click on it, it'll explain what those attributes are. So you'll kind of see that in a similar way with RGH and Staples. You do have to sign up for an account in order to see all of this. Send an email to RGH at eDiversity Network, and then they'll give you access to it. They have a lot of different green product categories, so the office supplies that we have gone over, a lot of these mentioned here. So not just limited to that, but they have a couple of other different categories. So here when you go, the way that they have it, shop eco products, and then it'll take you to every single green product that they have offered in there. And then you can find between different categories, between different eco features, like Energy Star, Safe for Choice. We see some eco labels there, RGH and Staples. Also showing that they have recycled content copy paper as well. So I recommend getting an account and seeing what these vendors have available. Amazon, wow, they actually recently have started adding, I don't know if any of you have noticed this because I'm an online Amazon purchaser myself, but they now have sustainability features added to it, which I didn't think was going to happen anytime soon, but looks like they did on their own time. And so now now for certain green products that are available, even on, very common e-commerce platforms like Amazon have them. They have the one sustainability feature right here. Also works with Alexa. That's not relevant, but the one sustainability feature that they have, it's probably going to be some type of third-party certification. My guess is ePeat, right? Canon has an all-in-one wireless printer. ePeat covers that those types of electronic products. So starting to see more labeling of sustainable features, not just from our statewide vendors, but from other buying platforms. Granger also has a lot of detailed information on their products on their e-commerce platform, but also the environmental attributes. The environmentally preferable product and attributes part will have like a pretty decent description of what features it is related to that. Yes, I did see Richard Keller. Do you have your hand up? Or maybe it was incidental. Your microphone is muted, so I can't hear you.
I said, go ahead and finish. I'll get my questions after.
Oh, okay, perfect. I have only a couple more slides, so we'll definitely have at least 15 minutes or so for that. Okay, so alternate green product options they also do have available here. The Buying Recycled Guide is a guidance document that we made on our website. It identifies products with recycled content on statewide contracts. It kind of is an aggregate of all of the green products offered between like RGH, Rudolph's, BISM, MCE. It's kind of just all consolidated into one document with a link to the e-commerce platform or to that green purchasing guide that it has. So that is another resource that you have available, very relevant to purchasing green office supplies and where to find them. And so now just a couple of highlights to kind of bring up the importance of buying green office supplies and that it does make an impact. Whether you want to say for yourself how big of an impact, I think that the state with the purchasing power that we have has the potential to make a huge impact with buying green products, and in this case, green office supplies. Here's an example of green toner cartridges that we purchased from fiscal year 2024. So we calculated the benefits of high yield and remanufactured ink cartridges. So that's going to look at the material saved, it's going to look at the greenhouse gas reductions, and it's going to look at the overall cost savings that you see in the image below. So 31 tons of CO2 and 70 tons of material was avoided through purchasing those green toner cartridges. $142,955 saved. So that's from like using high yield that has a better total cost of ownership over time. All these benefits calculations were done, so we are able to see, total we had over 5,000 green toner cartridges done. It's really good to see on like a grand scale what we're doing at the state with our totals, and how we're doing at the state. So over 5,000 definitely has direct benefits to purchasing the green option. And a great example of that is the toner cartridges that you see here. A couple of other notes is that our office supplies green spend has been going up and then down and then up again is kind of what I've been seeing. I've joined in fiscal year 2022, so I can't really speak much about 2020 and 2021, but I do think that we are on track for fiscal year 2025 to have uh, have a really high office supplies green spend again. Uh, this makes up about 8% of our total green spend. Um, the way that we categorize office supplies is we don't include those devices like printers and laptops and other office supplies, electronics. That is in the electronics and IT category. So, and that's over 50% of our green spend from last year. So whether there's overlap or not with office supplies and electronics and IT, we're doing great so far and having a lot of success buying green office supplies. And hopefully after this presentation, you've definitely learned about what makes office supplies products green and what the requirements are. But now you'll probably hopefully you'll feel empowered to like know the impact that it can have at the state and for cost savings as well. And that you'll be able to make, a good decision on, where we can find the green products, who to, what eco labels to look for, and what benefits that will give you all in the future. So that was a lot of talking on my part for a good hour and 15 minutes. I want to thank you all for joining in on this presentation. This is the time where we can open things up for questions. But first, I just want to say thank you all. I hope you mention, requesting green office supplies in your future solicitations and put those reporting requirements in. Just a couple of the main things to take home from this presentation. So I'm glad you all could join. If you have questions, please stay on. If you don't have any questions, you are free to go. Thank you.